Welcome to the Air Power Airwaves, the Air Power Manufacturing Solutions podcast series where we talk about manufacturing issues that impact you. Hey, it's Travis Stirewalt coming to you at Air Power Live Studios with another episode of Air Power Airwaves podcast. Today, we've got the big guy himself from Rockwall, Texas, Trey Peavy with RTT Solutions. Yeah. This is your second time doing a podcast with us.
Yeah, I guess I didn't do such a bad job the first time.
Not
you let me
at
come
all.
back.
Last time it was a roll down filter lane. And followed that up with a little sheet metal talk.
Yep.
And now we've got some new information, some new technology that we're going to talk about. But Trey, you are the Director of Sales and Marketing, right?
Yes, sir.
RTT?
That is it.
How long you been with RTT?
I think I'm going on 18 years,
All right.
I think. You know, it's kind of like being married. You know, every year is worth 7, they say, or something, or every year is worth 6 months. I don't remember the saying.
They also say something about the 7-year itch.
Maybe that's it, too. I lived through that one, I guess. But, yeah, no, it's been a long time now that I think back on it. You know, I got a little more gray in my beard than I had when I first started. I started out looking like a young guy, you know, like you over there, you know. But, no, it's been a good ride. It's been a good place to be, and I really enjoy it there.
Well, we enjoy your partnership with Air Power.
Yeah, for sure.
And then over here is Mr. Air Power himself, Kevin Averette. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Doing fantastic. So Kevin's my boss, too, so I got to act really, really, really good today.
So no secrets on the podcast today.
You already told me I can't get out of line.
Yeah.
Kevin, you are operations and competencies leader.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we change it
competencies
every once in a while.
is a full
Competencies
word.
leader. Yeah, you got to really think about it as you say it, right? So.
And you've been with Air Power about as long as I have.
Yep,
Close.
that's right. Yeah.
You outweigh me by a year.
Something like that. Yeah, I think
20.
I've been 13 years working on. No, let's see. Yeah, something like that.
I'm 11 going on 12.
Yeah,
You're probably
I think I'm 12 working
going
on
13.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So you have a journey with Air Power too. You started out as an account manager, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, actually started in Charlotte, in the Charlotte location, shipping and receiving.
That's right.
Then account manager and.
That's when Kevin would call me about filters.
That's right.
And saturated wipes.
Yep. That's right.
Yep. Good deal, man. Well, we have a great relationship, and I appreciate you coming on again. This is probably your fourth, fifth, maybe?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Something like that podcast?
Yeah. You keep asking me back, and I keep obliging, I guess. So I guess I'm doing something right too, Trey.
Yes,
I don't know.
The way to do it is you wait long enough for him to forget about it, and then you just spring it on him.
Yeah, this is true. He's pretty cunning in getting folks on here. Yeah.
Oh, Kevin, well, I know some specialists and some engineers, you know, you send them an email, hey, man, I got this idea for this podcast, and you never hear back from them.
Yeah.
So, no, it's all good. And again, I'm an application engineer, Travis Stirewalt with Air Power, and my world is filters, which is so perfect for today. Before I get into that, 1-800-334-1001 if anything we're talking about today interests you, including Trey or Kevin. You can reach them by calling that number and or going to the website and a couple clicks, and you can find how to get a hold of them. But 1-800-334-1001. We will be putting information about these systems on our website. On our website, airpower-usa.com, there is a brands page. Go to brands. There you will see an RTT logo. I don't know right here. You'll see that logo. Click on that logo, and you'll get to this information, filters, sheet metal, all contacts for their company in Rockwall, Texas. And some of you may know the old name, Colmet. Maybe you're not familiar with the change. Maybe you are. But RTT has been in place 5 years now, the name?
Yeah, we rebranded in right before the pandemic, so I guess it's around 19.
Yep.
So, yeah, going on 5 years. Same owner, same location, same management team.
Yep.
It's just a rebrand of the name.
Yeah. And I know we're blessed. We go down once a year, once every 2 years or something like that. We go down and do training location in Rockwall, and We've actually got a new account manager, regional manager for you guys that
Yep.
we're going to be able to meet today. So
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that. All right. So what are these? These are filter monitoring systems. You know about the old Dwyer, the Dwyer manometer that's got the red, the red fluid in it. It's, it's kind of, however, I can't say that I can't say that. I got to use a different way to say it. It's only as good as you set it up.
Sure.
And if you don't want to change your filters, people just go over to the little knob and turn it down, and doesn't help anybody, but it helps whoever's got to change filters not be able to change them for maybe another day or two, buy them some time. This is a whole different level. This takes that basic technology and adds a brain to your paint booth to be able to help monitor your incoming filters, your filter usage, how long it takes for a filter to fill up and exceed the pressure drop that's required by law at certain levels for your paint booth to stay operational. So with that said, there are different levels to this technology. First thing from you, how long has this been available? I know it's new technology.
Yeah, so the filter monitoring itself in some form or another has been around for a couple years. We've tried a couple different versions of it. Within the last year and a half, we kind of finalized in a design, and we said, okay, we're going to offer the kind of a standard version, kind of a little better plus version, and then we're going to bring in a really fully automated system as well. So we grouped those in on the monitoring. Like I say, within about the last 18 months, we've kind of finalized that. With the filter management system that I will get into here in a little bit, that is brand new. We're probably about 2 months into finalizing that technology.
Are we the first video online that'll be going up?
You are the first. You beat me to market on this. Yes.
Good deal. We're proud of that at Air Power. Sure. We like to get out in front. So we're going to start to break down these units. There are basically three levels. The first one you do not see here. The first one is similar to this unit here, but it basically has, instead of having this here, it's three LED lights that basically red, amber, and green. And green means everything's operating right and you're within spec. Amber means watch out, you're getting close to going out of spec. And the red would mean it's done, time to change your filters.
Yep.
And that's about all the data it provides. That's what it provides.
Yeah, it's a visual indicator only. It doesn't replace the OSHA required manometer or MagnaHelix, depending on what a lot of people have on their booths. It doesn't replace that. It just gives a little bit better of a visual for someone while the booth is running, and that technology, the booth has to be running. But when it's running, they can see the status of those filters, whichever ones that little monitor is monitoring.
So the standard one doesn't have a MagnaHelix on the front of it either.
No.
Yep. So again, it's a visual, and a lot of times in a paint environment, I can tell you that it's so easy to forget about those little Dwyer manometers on the side of the booth. Yeah. MagnaHelix are a little bit more in your face, but the number of, I would say, correct, you guys have been both in the field for years and years too. I would say the average Dwyer manometer on the side of a booth has been forgotten about. The red dye is dried up or is evaporated, and it's covered with dust. The hoses are clogged from the inside of the paint booth and is absolutely zero functional. Yep. This is required to be functional by OSHA. Mm-hmm. So and why? Let's talk about that really fast. Operator safety. Yep. You're dealing with solvents, hot liquid. You've got dangers in that environment. The whole purpose for filters is to get all of that dangerous fume, solvent, whatever, paint away from the operator and to catch it so that it doesn't go out and hurt somebody else later on after it's left the building. Filtration, that's what it's all about. What these do is provide a really good source of security to make sure visually you know the difference of the pressure drops, you know the flow, basically the static pressure, right? And you basically know that you still are maintaining that 100 foot a minute or greater, or 50 foot or greater, depending on the style of booth. So,
what I like about it is, it just takes the gray out of it, if that makes sense. If you're not sure exactly how to read in it, a certain magnehelic or manometer or whatever else, green is good and red's bad.
yep.
That's generally pretty
And
common.
amber, you need to be paying attention to something.
Pretty common in the production, world, right? And so whether you know what that's supposed to do or how it's supposed to be, or so many, inches of pressure, or whatever it is, you may not know all that, but if I see a green light, I'm safe to go into this booth.
Yep.
Right.
So,
So the first one
simplifies it.
The first one is filter monitoring system. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that one. That's basic. Now we've stepped up to the filter monitoring plus, which is this unit right here. I know you know this like the back of your hand. Do you want to take it? And
Yeah,
give us the
sure.
features?
Yeah, so you made mention about the manometer, and a lot of people's applications or on their equipment, it's forgotten about, and it really is. I was an installer for years. We installed the manometer right on the side of the plenum. We filled it up and set it and walked away. And I think as soon as a lot of times that evaporates out, they don't get reset. And you made a great point, Kevin, like, okay, what does it really mean? You had a little sticky arrow, but maybe it's fell off over the years, right? And it's a forgotten piece of equipment that's important. So what the Pro or the Plus model here, we put the light on top. We give you a better visual indicator so that now this can be remotely located into a better location, and tubing ran to that exhaust chamber and intake chamber or whatever we're trying to measure there. So that it's more in the face of operations.
Right.
You got a big stack light on top. That's the big, nice green light right now as it sits there. And then it can go to amber or it can go to red, and it's easy to see. And you're exactly right. And when that little manometer is sitting on the side with that little tiny vial, no one really sees it. They don't know the function of that. And, being on the spray booth manufacturer side, and you talk about static pressure of fans, the fan can only handle so much static pressure. And a lot of times it's not the same static that the filter could handle. Right. So the filter may not appear to be loaded, but the fan is because of that amount of loading that the filter has. And that means it needs to be changed.
That's right.
And not to mention if somebody actually oversized the booth and undersized the fan, now you're even fighting even worse.
Oh, even worse things. And offsets and ductwork, any other restrictions, system effects and things like that always play a big factor on the fan. And that's why on these, they're fully adjustable. So they can go into RTT equipment. They can go on to older Colemet equipment. They can go on to other manufacturers in the industry, and because they're set to what that design was, what that fan can handle with that type of filtration, and all of that is user adjustable.
Yeah, so you're saying if you have a spray booth, this equipment's applicable.
Oh, sure.
It doesn't matter what size it is, if it's a open face standard booth or if it's the most complex large booth that we're playing airplanes in, you can use it.
You can use it. Yep.
Right.
Yep. And I would recommend stepping up to a higher model for some larger booths and some higher volume people, but it could always be done here. The issue, and I bring that up only because if you have a larger booth, you have multiple chambers probably. You would need multiple of those systems.
Sure.
Where it's made to handle one filter resistance individually. And the next model that's sitting next to me can handle up to 12 on its own. Right. So, it works itself better for larger equipment. Another point on the Plus is that it latches at that status. Mm-hmm. So if the booth is running and it hits an amber status and they shut the booth off, that light stays amber. With the entry model, the standard filter monitoring, it goes back to green because there's no airflow resistance. So it says, hey, we're good. But as soon as they fire the booth back up, it would go back to that amber status. So this one gives you the ability to let you see where it got during operation. If the painter's inside the booth while he's painting and it hits that amber status, but he walks out and he just turns the booth off, he might not have saw that's where it was.
Right.
That way it stays there until it's manually reset.
I think a lot of people are used to seeing the stacking lights.
Uh-huh.
That each of them has a different color outside, so when it
Yes.
lights up. So this is actually LED, and that entire stack changes to amber, or that entire stack
exactly
changes to red.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are fully programmable for us. If if a customer wanted some unique colors or strobing, that's capable, and we can do those things as well.
You said that the strobing red is really enjoyable.
The strobing red is pretty intense. It really is. Yeah. No one ignores that. I promise you.
Yeah. Well, I like what you've done because you've taken, a needed technology for safety and, taking care of your employees and things of that nature, and really brought it up to the modern day time with technology and integrating it with modern day sensors and lights and controls, right?
Yes. Yeah, and we also tried to get, I think a lot of people maybe change out filters before they need to because they don't really know.
Right.
And this gives a better, if you work through the process of setting up the pressures, then you get a really good indication of how your filters are performing.
Yeah.
And you might get some more life out of a filter that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
But if you're running them too long, because it happens, dry fall, falls on a product and messes the coating up.
Yep.
Well, a lot of that's due because of airflow is not moving this particulate away. So they may find out that they're in a red status where they normally wouldn't be.
Right.
And they'd still be in production because they were losing airflow.
Sure.
Because when a fan reaches its maximum static pressure, it doesn't produce as much air anymore. So the more resistance you give it, the less air it moves.
Well, you start making database decisions versus like, I think this is right, or we always do it off of this. Well, production changes, as we know, and it's really just data-driven decisions, which gets you the max efficiency out of your booth and your filters, right? So,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a good segue into the next system because these are visually indicating our next system here that we want to talk about, the Filter Monitoring Pro. It has that data capability, and it stores that data where it can be exported out in a CSV built into the system, or charts and tables of information of what's been happening in that system over its beginning of time. And all that can be exported out and evaluated by a more data-driven decision, right? Filter trials, it's a great way to do filter trials because now it's very data-driven and it's kind of doing it for you.
Yep.
No one's having to stand there and monitor it or record information. It's just doing it on its own.
Now Travis is going to be asking me for one.
He may.
We'll get there.
Yes. All right, so we've talked about so far, the very first one, just to recap, was Filter Monitoring System entry level. Then the Filter Monitor Plus, which is this right here. Now there's two versions of the Filter Monitoring Pro, right?
Well, there's the Filter
the
Monitoring
one-
Pro, and then
And
there's
the one with the filter management system.
with the filter management. Yeah, but they're separate systems.
So let's talk about the Filter Monitor Pro. And that one we do not have in front of us, but it's very similar to this. And it's about more this size, right? Closer to this size, but it also has the 10-inch monitor.
No, it's going to be pretty. It's going to
Pretty
be
close
pretty
to
much
this?
what we're looking at
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
Just where this one says filter management because it has the management technology. It's just what's going to say Filter Management Monitor Pro.
Okay. So let's talk about the Pro, the unit just by itself. Let's go through it. You can punch list with it, but it's 10-inch screen, PLC, functions on pressure transmitters instead of switches, email and text notifications, provides data acquisition and recording, and provides run hours.
Yep.
That's what the Pro does.
Yep, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah, the biggest difference here is like obviously the HMI, right? The interface with the user is all done on a color touchscreen, 10-inch touchscreen. And then we talked about the data a little bit, but some of the big differences is we talked about the pressure switches that are in there that have to be adjusted. In these systems here, we're using a transmitter. So tubing goes away back to the controller, and then we just have this is an M12 connection cable that we sell as a kit that would have like all of this cable would be tied in to this sensor, ran back to this control module.
Right.
This can be installed on existing conduit, run down the booth. It can be put anywhere. It doesn't need to go inside conduit or anything like that. So that's one of the biggest things is you can mount the controller anywhere as long as you run wiring to it. So you can use our pre-made connectors, or it could be ran in field ran wiring. That's how we're getting that analog signal back for our visual indication here to see where that pressure is on this gauge. So I have a digital version of that gauge here.
I mean, you don't have hundreds of foot of tubing ran that could get clogged, kinked, or anything like that. You're getting your sample and transducing and sending it back digitally via cable.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you have maybe 6 inches of tubing at the most, and that's just the tie from the booth to the sensor.
Yep.
That's mounted right there.
So if you had a single stage booth, you just need one of those. But if you've got 2 stage, you need 2, 3, and so on and so on.
Ideally, if you had multiple stages of filtration, you would want to monitor each stage individually. If not, you would just have to measure the differential across all of those stages at one time. And we've seen that a lot. You know, the guy changes the first stage 6 times, and then they change the middle stage. And then for every 2 times they change the middle stage, they change the third stage. You know,
it's less data.
But it's not known exactly.
Yep.
And then the way this system is designed, these cables that I mentioned, they can handle 3 sensors. So one cable can be tied into 3 sensors. So then I can run, if I had a 3-stage exhaust filtration in one chamber, I can run that in one cable back to this unit.
Right.
And I can do that up to 12 sensors.
Okay.
Right. So I can do that 4 different times.
Right.
I can monitor multiple booths. You know, if you have 2 booths sitting side by side, this will monitor both of those. And you can name them, and you would know what sensor, and you give it a custom name. So you would know this is booth number 1, exhaust chamber, booth number 2, exhaust chamber, intake chambers, air makeup unit, intake filters. Everybody forgets about air makeup units on the building, right?
Nobody ever knows when the last time the link panels were changed.
Nobody knows when the panel's been changed. So now a transmitter can go up there, and now we can monitor that down here in this cabinet and get data and things like that. So all of that is built right into this system that is going to record all of the pressures, all the time of the life of that filter that was in there. And then if they change the filters, the pressures just come down, and you can see in a widespread part of the chart where the pressure was here and then it went down. And it's kind of, when you look at the life cycle of it, you're going to see it, you know, going up and down and up and down. So that's all built right into the system that functions right here.
So that's the first component to this unit here.
Well, yeah, it's the monitoring portion of what we're looking at here, and but in that monitoring portion, we can still send notifications. So text messages, emails can go to multiple groups. So there's actually 3 groups of people that can be configured to get notifications when this hits an amber status, let's say, or if it hits a red status. You know, maybe the maintenance guy doesn't need to be notified at that amber status, but he does at that red. Like, hey, that manager of maintenance needs to know these filters need to be changed. They've hit that point to where the fan's running at full speed. It has to be changed. So he gets that notification then, but he doesn't necessarily get it when it's yellow, but maybe his team does. Right. So his team gets it. They say, oh, hey, we need a schedule. We need to go make a change on that booth, right? So it gives the ability to set up these different escalations, right? So as the alarms trigger, it can go all the way up to the owner of the company, right? If you said, if the owner of the company mandated that I never want to see a red indicator on these booths, then if it ever happened, then they could get that email or text message. But we just need an internet connection to make those happen.
Okay.
Ethernet connection is the way that we're set up currently.
So I want to shift this a little bit as we get into the filter management system portion of this. From my perspective, and I know you deal with filters every day, and Kevin, you and I talk about filters on a fairly regular basis, but I'm the one at Air Power that gets the, the nightmare calls like, frantic, I'm out of filters, we forgot to order them. And it doesn't matter if you're a small company doing powder coating or liquid or spraying adhesives. It doesn't matter. It's all the same panic level that they're looking for filters. Well, in this market, in our world, lead times for filters are very challenging. You just don't know what you're going to get when you call in, whether it's, we got some of that on the shelf, or we happen to have some in our inventory at Air Power. Or we call a vendor and it's going to be a hard 4 weeks, or it's going to be 15. You just don't know. And this system, the primary responsibility, benefit of this filter management system is to be able to set that up where you're actually entering your stocked inventory, what your min and your maybe a max. Is there
It's a min, just a min.
Just a min. And when you order, let's say, RT 3253, okay, you order that and you get, let's say, 100 bags. 3253, that's right, isn't it?
It's your part number. I don't know.
30, let's say 30.
I ain't getting in your mind.
I know. I got a lot of them in my head. Let's say you're ordering a bag of roll media, and you typically go through 50 bags a month at your facility. You don't want to order 50 bags. You always want to have safety stock in your building to allow that time for a turnaround. This would allow you to do that, because when you every time you change the filters, you go in and you enter that you used filters. Is it a button that you hit?
Yeah, so there's two ways that happens. The system itself can automatically trigger an alert that says the filters need to be changed in the filter management system.
Yep.
Not the filter monitoring pro, but in the filter management system. So if we have an exhaust chamber and one sensor, like that one sensor that I brought up, if the filters that we're monitoring there have hit that red status, an alert comes up on this screen right here, and it's visible and it doesn't go away. And when that alert comes up, lights change, and action has to be taken at that point. And then at that point, okay, we got to change the filters. They acknowledge the alert. They acknowledge that they did change the filters. The other way to do it is let's say that, hey, we just want to work on a production schedule where we always change filters at a certain time. Or, hey, maybe one sensor on one side of the booth went off, but the one on the other side didn't, just because of the application process, right? Then they want to go ahead and change them both. Then they can manually touch a button to
basically override that.
Override that and just say I went ahead and changed those settings.
So then what happens, and then we're kind of looking for the chain of action here.
Yeah. So let me just kind of start from the beginning. So when you get the filter management system, you're going to acknowledge the filters that are in the system. Okay. Yeah. So if let's say we're monitoring exhaust and intake filters of a spray booth, and let's just say let's do the air makeup unit as well. So when we set up our system, one of the first things that we do is we go in and we put the part numbers of the filters in that we're using. So we're going to have that 3200 series filter that you mentioned as an exhaust. Then we're going to have our intake filtration part numbers, and then we're going to have our link panels for our AMUs, right? So we establish those, and then we establish how many of those filters do we have on hand, and how many of those filters do we want to be acknowledged when we hit a minimum, right? So, you talk about if you use 50 a month, right? And the lead times are 4 weeks. Well, then you need to probably have it at least 20 to 25 on hand at all times, right? So you need 100, but we need it when it gets to 25 to be alerted, because if your production stays normal, you would be able to have enough filters to get that new 100 in, right? Yep. So that's where that system is set up. Then once we start looking at the sensor level, right, and we go at sensor 1, and that's our exhaust chamber, we name it whatever we want to name it, and we name it, our exhaust chamber, and then we're going to establish which one of those part numbers we use. And you can use up to 2 part numbers per sensor. That's not necessarily for stage 1 and stage 2, even though it could be used that way if you're just looking at a total resistance across those filters. But what it's really established for is like in a lot of cross draft large equipment booths, you have a tower plenum on each side of the product door, and you have a wide 45-inch roll of filters, and you have a split row of 22.5 that's on the front face of that tower. So you need 2 part numbers because they're 2 different filters. Sure. Maybe there's, it needs 2 to cover one and only 1 to cover the other, depending on the length of the filter you're using. So you go in there and you set those filters and you set the quantities that are going to be changed out. And then the system, when you make that selection or you acknowledge that alert, just removes that amount of filters that you've set up from inventory.
Right.
And it just runs that way until it hits the minimum, and then it's going to send out a notification to whoever you've set up to get it, the purchasing agent, right? The maintenance guy again, or the floor manager, whoever you need that communication to flow up into the front office, because, we've discussed, as we looked at filter monitoring, there's always a disconnect between the floor and the front office a lot of times, right? Like what's happening on the floor, what's the production schedule. A lot of times the procurement or the purchasing departments aren't as in tune as they need to be. So this system, we hope, solves some of that communication issue to where you set that minimum. And you can set it way over the minimum wherever you want it, but when it hits it, then that notification goes out to who needs to see it. But that's pretty much how the management system ties into the filter monitoring system. So if you buy a filter management system, then you automatically get all the benefits of the Filter Monitoring Pro, plus all these inventory advancements, right?
And this will support up to 12 sensors, right?
12 sensors as it sets. If we go to more than 12 sensors, then we need another touchscreen.
Okay.
So we can add to it. These are set up as retrofit kits. So like if you have a booth like today, we could take one of these, give it 110 volt power and an Ethernet connection, and we put the sensor on it, and it runs today on a booth that's already existing.
Right.
In anyone's booth, right? Like we mentioned before. And it doesn't have to be a spray booth. I mean, it could be anything where there's a filter where we can measure pressure differential. This can go on it. Right. I tell people about compressors and control panel cabinets have filters in the sidewall that no one ever changes, right? Well, this could be set up to monitor those filters as well. Yeah. So you have all of that. I lost myself on the control panel filter. I don't know where I was going with my conversation. I'm just trying to think of all the different. I get my mind goes crazy thinking of all the applications, right? At which this thing can be put into. But if it's a new piece of equipment, right, then we just build the controls to house whatever we need for that system.
Right.
So if I was building you a spray booth and you needed more than 12 sensors, then we would build the control cabinet to fit that. It would be custom to it. You wouldn't need to bring 110 volts separate and things like that.
Yeah. These are just standard packages that you can add onto a retrofit for sure.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's how these set today.
Yeah.
As a retrofit that can go, anywhere, because there's a huge market. RTT is going to sell a certain number of spray booths this year, but RTT's been in business for over 25 years. We got some competitors that have been in business that longer. There's a lot of spray booths out there. Yep. So that's why we created these to just go on any piece of equipment out there.
Yep. And I think the thing that I want to drive in here really quick is when you're dealing with filter management at a facility, and you are responsible for inventory, there's really 2 different kinds of companies that we deal with. One is one that has a very regimented production schedule. Then there's others that might have, they might have an anodizing line and they might have a powder line, And sometimes it gets really heavy on the anodizing, so filter usage drops way off. Sometimes it goes the other way. The anodizing line stops, which we don't notice, but all of a sudden we notice that the filters we're stocking for them start to just start to go away. And we have min-max set up, but there's a lot of communication that has to take place. With this system here, you, the customer, will be notified when you start reaching inventory levels that are dangerous, that you do not want to run out. And even companies that have a very routine usage, it's still something that's easily forgotten if back office isn't talking to front office about the usage levels and what's going on. So
that's a good point. And we talk about customers. Me and Travis have had conversations before about just trying to take sometimes unpredictable, because all of our customers are like us, I believe, and they try to cater to their customers, right? So they're trying to, depending on the model or the make or whatever, their production ebbs and flows, and they're trying to take an unpredictable process and make it predictable. And this is what really allows that to happen, and so that they can stay ahead and ultimately maximize production, right?
So if you're listening to this and you don't know much about Air Power, I can tell you that our corporate office in High Point, North Carolina, we have a finishing lab. Mm-hmm. Finishing lab has ovens. It has a powder booth, cartridge style booth, and we've got 2 liquid booths. One's a multi-stage and one's a single stage. A dog track conveyor that runs through there. We have a big AMU in one end to make sure we've got enough airflow in that room. Mm-hmm. But we work with our vendor partners, which RTT certainly is, on bringing technology into those labs and into our lab from, I don't know, Kevin, you could go down a list of things that we've got, but
yeah, intelligent paint kitchen, 2K optimization, different types of powder technology pumps. Then we work with robotic application. What makes sense? Does it make sense to have a reciprocator if you want to automate, or does it make sense to have a robot? Does it need to be collaborative, or does it need to be a standard robot? And all the different scenarios that we may test and really just help develop. We've got the capability to help develop a finishing schedule, really, because we can run the conveyor and simulate your times, and use our oven to see what cure times are, and just test all different types of things for our customers.
Yep. Yeah, and we really believe in this technology, and Trey's been kind enough to come up from Texas to North Carolina to introduce this with us, and this is actually going to be installed in our finishing lab. So very quickly, we've already figured out where we're going to put it. So if you are a customer that's interested in implementing something like this into your system, we can always get you any of these other systems you need, but that's a pretty easy to decide if that's needed. This one here is kind of revolutionary, changes a lot of things, and we're going to be spending time with this unit and learning it and adapting with it this one unit will work on both of our spray booths, so we'll have everything running to that. So we appreciate the partnership, Trey.
Sure. Absolutely.
And looking forward to bringing in customers to just show them, test run this, show them how to do it, and show them how it works. And it's an investment up front, but you just look at any downtime caused by not having filters, not having enough, and then having to wait out, a filter ship and be able to turn your spray guns back on. If you've never done that, good for you, but it happens all the time,
Yep.
Kevin, I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you for joining us. And I'll try to draft you again for another podcast, but as soon as I can. And Trey, I know I just shook your hand, but man, as a friend, thank you very much for supporting us. And we appreciate you every time you come into the studio.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yep. Thanks for the partnership.
Yeah. So RTT on Air Power's website, if you go to the brands page, click on that RTT logo that you see on the brands page, you'll learn more about RTT, and I think we're going to try to put up these different units, or pull the information from your website and put it there for us to be able to show the different units. Yeah. Got great pictures of those. So
more to come.
Yep. All right, 1-800-334-1001 if you have any questions at all. The one website you need to remember is airpower-usa.com. And for all things videos, airpowerlive.com or airpowerairwaves.com. I'm going to wrap this up by saying what I always say at the end of a podcast: manufacture it a great day.
Thank you for joining the Air Power Airwaves podcast. Air Power Airwaves is a production of Air Power Inc. and Air Power Live Studios and is hosted by Travis Stirewalt. For more information, please visit airpowerairwaves.com. For more information on all of our products, brands, and manufacturing solutions, please visit airpower-usa.com. If you have any questions or need product support, please contact Air Power at 1-800-334-1001.